The signal they shouldn't have sent, the Karath Dominion patrol ship, Varkun, drifted silently along the border of their claimed space, its sharp, bone-colored hull cutting through the emptiness. Inside the command chamber, the air was heavy with the low hum of machinery and the faint scent of recycled oxygen. Captain Relvar, a tall, scarred Karath with 4 black eyes, stood over the sensor console, his clawed hand tapping the edge with impatience. "Unidentified object detected," hissed the sensor officer, his voice trembling slightly. A ripple of curiosity moved through the bridge crew. Uncharted ships were rare this far out. They were in one of the quietest sectors of the galaxy, a place where only the Dominion's warships dared to roam. Relvar leaned closer to the console, his eyes narrowing at the display. The object was massive, far larger than the Dominion's largest dreadnought. No identification codes, no registry. It sat in the void, motionless, as if waiting. "Run a scan," Relvar ordered. The sensor officer hesitated. "Sir, power readings are strange. I can't match them to any known source." Relvar's mouth curled in a sharp-toothed grin. "Strange means weak. Weak means prey." He gestured sharply. "Scan it, full resolution." The scanning pulse shot out into the darkness, invisible to the naked eye but bright and sharp on the ship's instruments. Every Dominion crew member leaned in, watching the data stream back. At first, the readouts were incomplete. Energy readings too high to calculate, material composition, unknown, weapon systems, unknown, life signs, present, but shielded. Then the ship's AI began translating an encrypted signal buried inside the scan return. A single sentence appeared on the bridge display, written in flawless Karath. "You should not have looked." The bridge fell silent, the hum of the ship's system suddenly loud in the ears of Ev. "Area officer," the sensor officer's frills folded back tight against his skull. "Captain, I don't think this is a normal ship," Relvar snarled. "Everything bleeds when cut," and turned to the comms officer. "Signal the fleet. We've found something worth claiming." Far away, deep within the warship HSS Oblivion, Captain Juno Ashford watched the scan request hit their defensive network. Her crew's fingers danced over black glass consoles monitoring the incoming data. The Dominion scan was aggressive, invasive, the kind of scan meant for prey. Juno smiled faintly, her voice calm but edged with steel. "They've seen us." The Oblivion was unlike any other vessel in the human fleet. Its hull drank in light, its structure layered with alloys that no alien database could recognize. The ship's power core was a relic of the old war, a singularity reactor that bent space and time around it. Every system on the ship was designed for one purpose: to end battles before they began. Juno turned to her tactical officer, a young man with sharp eyes and steady hands. "Return their scan with a message." He nodded, fingers gliding across the console, embedding the warning deep inside the Dominion's data stream. It was an old trick from humanity's past conflicts, a psychological knife to the enemy's mind. Back on the Varkun, the Dominion officers were still trying to make sense of the readings. The ship's mass was impossible, its energy output enough to power an entire sector for decades, yet it emitted no heat, no engine signature. It was like staring into a shadow that could swallow stars. "Captain, the other patrol ships are arriving," the comms officer reported. Relvar straightened, his arrogance returning. Numbers had always been the Dominion's strength. A lone warship, no matter how large, could be broken by the combined fire of the fleet. At least, that was what every bombed. Adel Manuel said. Relvar opened a fleet-wide channel, his voice echoing through a dozen ships. "We have found an unknown vessel trespassing in Dominion territory. We will take it, strip it, and use its secrets for the glory of the Karath." The bridge crew roared their approval, the sound harsh and eager, but in the quiet corners of the bridge, a few junior officers glanced at each other nervously. The message from the ship still lingered in their minds. Not a threat, not a boast. A simple statement. You should not have looked. Somewhere deep in their instincts, older than the Dominion itself, they felt the truth of it. Predators knew when they had found something more dangerous than themselves, and whatever was out there in the dark, waiting for them. It had just turned its gaze upon them, the warship revealed. The Karath Dominion fleet formed up in a wide arc, their ships gliding into position with the cold precision of predators surrounding prey. 30 warships, destroyers, cruisers, and the massive flagship Bloodfang drifted into range, their hulls glowing faintly from active shields. From the bridge of the Varkun, Captain Relvar watched their approach with satisfaction. No ship could withstand this much firepower. "Magnify the image," Relvar ordered. The sensor feed sharpened, clearing the haze of long-range scans. The alien vessel Bobato, the one they had mocked moments ago, came into full view. It was wrong, not in size alone, though it was colossal. The shape defied normal design, angular yet fluid, a black silhouette that seemed to bend space around it. Where Dominion ships gleamed with metal and light, this one absorbed every ray. It looked less like a ship and more like a wound in the void. "Where are its weapon ports?" one officer muttered, scanning the image. The AI displayed outlines, hundreds of them, but each was concealed under layered armor. The heat map was flat, unreadable. Even the life signs were hidden behind something the Dominion scanners couldn't penetrate. "Impossible," the science officer whispered, his mandibles twitching. "Everything has a heat signature, except this." Relvar's claws tapped against his armrest, his pride refusing to let fear grow roots. "All the more reason to claim it," he growled. "Target it for a precision strike." Aboard the HSS Oblivion, the bridge was silent except for the soft hum of systems too advanced for the galaxy's understanding. Captain Juno Ashford stood in the center, hands clasped behind her back. Through the panoramic display, she watched the Dominion fleet fan out like wolves preparing to tear into their prey. Her tactical officer, Ensign Cole, glanced at her for orders. "They're painting us with targeting beams," he said, his voice calm but tight. "They think numbers will save them," Juno replied, her eyes still locked on the display. "Let them see what they've challenged." The Oblivion's hull shimmered faintly as defensive fields shifted. It was not the bright glow of conventional shields. It was darker, as if the very stars bent away from the ship, refusing to touch it. Back on the Bloodfang, the Dominion admiral watched his targeting systems feed back strange data. The human warship was so dense, so heavily shielded, that even the fleet's most powerful sensors gave only fragmented readings. "It's masking its position," one officer said. "We're targeting where it was a moment ago, not where it is now." The admiral's eyes narrowed. Ships didn't move like that unless they were cloaked. But cloaking of this magnitude was supposed to be impossible at this scale. "Fire anyway," he ordered, his voice hard. "All ships, full volley." The void lit up as the Dominion fleet unleashed everything. Plasma lances, kinetic slugs, ion torpedoes, a storm of destruction. The weapons slammed into the Oblivion's position, and then the light simply died. On every Dominion ship, the tactical screens went black for a fract. Of a second, when the image returned, the human vessel was still there, completely unharmed. It hadn't moved, it hadn't even raised visible shields, yet every weapon's energy had vanished into nothing. On the Varkun, the sensor officer's frills trembled. "Captain?" "It absorbed the attack," he said in disbelief. Relvar's throat clicked in irritation. "No vessel can do that. Prepare another volley." In the human warship, Juno's crew waited, silent. The absorbed energy readings scrolled across the consoles. Cole glanced at the captain. "Cores fully charged." Juno gave the smallest nod. "Good. Now, let them see us." Panels along the Oblivion's hull slid open, revealing rows of weapon arrays. Sleek black shapes that hummed with a low, dangerous resonance. But these were not like the weapons the Dominion knew. There was no bright charge-up, no visible targeting beam, only a slow, steady glow, like embers burning in the heart of a dying star. Juno's voice was steady, almost quiet. "One shot," she ordered. A single dark lance beam lanced out, silent and without flare. It cut through a Dominion cruiser as if the ship was made of paper. No explosion, no debris cloud, just two perfect halves drifting apart into the void. On every Dominion bridge, silence fell. Officers stared at the feed in disbelief, the lack of sound, the lack of fire. It was as if the ship had been erased from existence. The message from earlier echoed in the minds of the Karath officers. "You should not have looked." For the first time, the fleet felt something rare in the Dominion. Not anger, not strategy, but fear. Memories of the old war. The Dominion fleet drifted in uneasy formation, their weapons still hot from the last volley. On the Bloodfang's bridge, the admiral stood frozen, watching the two drifting halves of the destroyed cruiser. It hadn't exploded. It had simply stopped existing in one clean cut. A weapon that precise wasn't meant for intimidation, it was meant to end. Battles in seconds. Far away aboard the HSS Oblivion, Captain Juno Ashford studied the Dominion formation with a calm expression. To her crew, she was a steady hand. Controlled, sharp, unreadable. But inside her mind, a flood of memories stirred. Memories from a war the galaxy had tried to forget. 2 centuries ago, when humanity was young among the stars, the Orion conflict had burned through 16 systems. It had started small, raids on mining colonies, border skirmishes, but grew into a full war that spanned generations. The enemy back then had not been the Dominion, but something older, something far more brutal, the Zalari Horde. They believed in total erasure, leaving behind no survivors, no ruins, just empty planets. Humanity, desperate and cornered, had built the Oblivion in secret. It was not designed to win wars through attrition or slow campaigns. It was built to make sure a war ended the moment it began. Juno remembered the stories told in hushed voices at the Academy, how the Oblivion's first battle lasted less than 3 hours, how its weapons erased entire fleets without the heat of battle ever touching human skin, and how, at the end, the Zalari homeworld went dark. Its sun veiled by an artificial shadow the Oblivion left behind. The ship had been mothballed after the Orion conflict, sealed away in deep storage on a moon with no name, not because it was damaged, but because the galaxy had begged humanity never to use it again. Some called it mercy, others called it fear. The truth was more complicated. The Oblivion was a weapon even humans feared to wield. The years turned into centuries. The Dominion rose in power, crushing smaller civilizations, claiming vast territories. At first, Earth stayed silent, sending only diplomats and warnings, but then came the raids. Frontier colonies vanished without a signal. Freighters were found drifting, crews gone, and finally a whole human settlement burned. Families, children, all gone. That was when the sealed orders were opened. Juno had been summoned to high command without explanation. There, in a quiet underground chamber, she had seen it for the first time. The black silhouette of the Oblivion sleeping under layers of dust and automated security. Even in silence, it radiated a kind of presence that made her spine tense. It took years to restore the ship. Every system upgraded with technology no one dared share with outsiders. New weapons designed not just to destroy, but to erase. The kind of technology that didn't just kill fleets, it erased the idea of fighting back. Juno had been given one mission. If they will not stop, you will make them stop. Now, standing on her bridge, Juno understood the weight of that responsibility. Her crew didn't cheer after the first kill. They didn't shout victory. They worked in silence, aware that each action they took could decide the fate of entire civilizations. Captain, Ensign Cole said quietly, pulling her from her thoughts. They're reforming, but their movements are hesitant. Juno nodded. They've seen the shadow. Her gaze locked on the Dominion flagship at the center of the formation. Now they need to understand the darkness it comes from. On the Varkun, Captain Relvar tried to smother the unease in his gut. The stories of ancient human wars were dismissed as propaganda in Dominion schools. Humans were considered resourceful, yes, clever, adaptable, but never dominant. Yet here was a single human warship making a fleet of 30 hesitate. Relvar's second-in-command spoke up, voice low. Sir, if this is the same ship from the old war. Relvar cut him off sharply. That's a myth. But his claws tapped nervously against the console, betraying his doubt. Back on the Oblivion, Juno's eyes hardened. The galaxy thought humanity had grown soft in its centuries of peace. They thought Earth's strength was gone. The Dominion scan had been more than curiosity. It had been a challenge. And now, like the Zalari before them, they would learn the cost of that mistake. She stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying through the bridge. Prepare to advance. Every console lit up, the Oblivion's engines humming with a low, ominous note. In the black between the stars, the ancient warship began to move. And with it, the shadow of the old war came alive again. The first strike, the HSS Oblivion moved forward at a slow, steady pace. It didn't rush, didn't weave. It simply advanced, straight toward the heart of the Dominion fleet. On every alien ship, officers stared at their screens, confused. No evasive maneuvers, no shield flares, no visible countermeasures. Only that vast black hull gliding closer. From the Varkoon's bridge, Captain Relvar's voice was sharp. "They're taunting us." His sensor officer swallowed hard. "Sir, I think it's letting us track it." Relvar's eyes narrowed. "Good. Then let's show them our strength. Fire." The Dominion fleet unleashed its second volley. Plasma streams twisted through the void. Railgun slugs tore across the darkness. Ion bursts lit space in brilliant arcs of white-blue. The firestorm converged on the Oblivion. And once again, simply vanished. On human tactical displays, the incoming energy didn't show as damage. It appeared as stored power, a reservoir filling faster than even the engineers had expected. Ensign Cole looked up from his station. "Captain, we're at 130% capacity." Juno's voice was quiet but firm. "Hold fire." In the Dominion flagship Bloodfang, the Admiral leaned forward, his claws gripping the railing. "How is it?" "Absorbing everything," he muttered. A science officer replied, voice shaking. "Sir, the readings suggest the energy is being redirected. Stored." The Admiral's eyes widened. "They're charging up onto it." He Oblivion's bridge. The lighting shifted. The black glass consoles took on a faint red glow. Systems unlocked. Heavy plates along the hull sliding away to reveal the ship's true teeth. Rows of dark lance emitters aligned in perfect silence, like predators raising their heads from the grass. Juno stepped toward the command console. "They wanted to know what we are," she said, her gaze fixed on the Dominion flagship. "Let's teach them." "Target?" Cole asked. Juno shook her head. "Not their flagship. Not yet. Aim for their line breakers. Make them fear for their survival before they fear for their command." The Oblivion fired. No thunder, no recoil, no bright flash, only a beam of pure darkness. A line that seemed to erase the stars in its path, cut across space. It touched a Dominion destroyer for less than a second. When the beam faded, the destroyer's midsection was gone. The two halves drifted apart, still glowing faintly at the edges where the matter had been sliced away at the atomic level. On Dominion comms, chaos erupted. Some officers shouted for immediate retreat. Others demanded a full rush toward the human ship. But the captains and the smaller vessels were already breaking formation, scattering away from the kill zone. The Oblivion didn't pursue. Instead, it moved forward again. Slow, deliberate, unshaken. It fired once more, and another destroyer simply ceased to exist in one clean, silent motion. Then, without warning, it stopped firing altogether. Cole frowned. "Captain, why hold back? We could crush them now." Juno's eyes didn't leave the display. "Because they're not scared enough yet," she said. "Right now they fear our weapons. Soon, they'll fear the idea of us." Back on the Bloodfang, the Admiral watched his fleet shrink on the tactical display. The humans weren't killing them all. They were choosing their targets. The precision of it gnawed at him more than the destruction itself. It meant control, patience, and confidence. It meant the humans knew they could end this at any moment. "Order all ships to hold position," the Admiral said through gritted teeth. His second-in-command stared at him, shocked. "Sir, you want us to just wait?" "Yes," the Admiral growled. "If we move without thinking, they'll pick us off one by one. We wait and try to understand what we're facing." But there was no understanding. Every scan came back corrupted. Every attempt to lock on failed. The human ship's data footprint seemed to rewrite itself every few seconds. It was like trying to read a shadow that kept changing shape. The message they had received earlier flashed in the Admiral's mind again. "You should not have looked." For the first time in his career, the Admiral wondered if victory was impossible, and worse, if survival was no longer in his hands. On the Oblivion, Juno finally gave the order. "Prepare the next maneuver. Let's give them something they'll remember when they try to sleep." The warship's engines shifted pitch. Instead of advancing in a straight line, it began to weave, but not in any pattern the Dominion could track. It moved like a predator circling prey in the dark. And as it moved, its weapons remained silent, because sometimes silence was the loudest threat of all. The psychological war. The HSS Oblivion drifted among the Dominion ships like a shadow between flickering candles. It didn't fire, didn't speak, didn't even accelerate. It just moved, changing position in ways the Dominion couldn't predict. Every few minutes, a Dominion vessel would flicker on the human targeting display. But no shot followed. The chosen ship would sit in that red targeting box for long, awful seconds before it vanished again. That was worse than being destroyed. It told them one thing. We are watching you. On the Bloodfang's bridge, the Admiral felt the tension grow heavier by the minute. His crew worked in silence now, every chirp of the sensors making their frills twitch. A young off. Icer whispered, "Sir, they could have killed us already. Why are they waiting?" The Admiral didn't answer, because he knew. The humans were doing what the Dominion had done to others for centuries, breaking them from the inside. Aboard the Oblivion, Captain Juno Ashford watched the enemy movements like a chess master studying pieces on a board. Cole leaned toward her. "We could finish them right now," he said. Juno shook her head slowly. "They're soldiers. Soldiers follow orders. But if we make them believe their orders will kill them, they'll break without us firing another shot." The next step wasn't about destruction. It was about messages. Juno ordered the comms officer to transmit across every Dominion frequency. Not words, not threats, only an image. The high-resolution scan the Dominion had taken earlier, the one they thought would give them the ship's weaknesses, but in this version the scan's heat map pulsed like a heartbeat, and in the center text appeared in flawless Karath language. "We choose when you die." On every Dominion bridge, the image replaced tactical displays for a full 10 seconds before the systems could clear it. 10 seconds of staring into the black silhouette of the human warship. 10 seconds to imagine what it meant for a predator to decide the exact moment you stop breathing. Some crews cracked first. A destroyer near the fleet's edge turned hard and began accelerating away from formation. The Admiral roared over comms, ordering them back. They didn't answer. Within minutes, 2 more ships followed, scattering into deep space. The Oblivion moved again, not toward the fleeing ships, but toward the fleet's center. Its massive frame blotted out stars as it passed. For the Dominion crews, it was like watching a planet move under its own will. Every few minutes, the human ship would flash its dark lance array, just enough for the glow to ripple along its hull, then go dark again. No firing, no hits, just the reminder that it could. On the Varkun, Captain An Relvar, second in command, whispered, "This isn't war. This is a hunt." Relvar didn't answer, because the truth of it sat in his chest like a stone. He knew hunts. He had led many. And he knew what came next. The kill. Juno could see it in their movements. The fleet was breaking apart in slow motion. Fear spread ship to ship like a sickness. Every captain wondering, "Am I next?" Every crew member glancing at the human silhouette on their sensors and praying it wouldn't turn toward them. She leaned over to Cole. "Now they understand why the Orion conflict ended in one battle." Cole gave a tight smile. "And we haven't even touched their flagship." To drive the knife deeper, Juno ordered the Oblivion to disable, not destroy. 2 more ships. The Dark Lance beams cut their engines in perfect precision, leaving them adrift but alive. The message was clear. We can take away your ability to fight, and we can do it without killing you. For the Dominion, that was worse than death. It meant the humans could humiliate them. It meant survival wasn't victory. It was surrender. On the Bloodfang, the Admiral finally broke the silence. "Send to all ships," he said. "Hold fire. We wait for their terms." The words tasted like ash. He had never surrendered, never even considered it. But looking at that ship, moving with deliberate patience, he understood. If they fought, they would be erased. If they ran, they would be hunted. If they stayed still, maybe, just maybe, the humans would let them live. Aboard the Oblivion, Juno saw the shift in their posture. Weapons going cold, formations tightening defensively. She knew then that the psychological war was over. The real one would begin next. and it would end in a single move. She straightened, her voice steady. Prepare for the final strike, the final confrontation. The HSS Oblivion cut its engines. It didn't need speed now. The Dominion fleet was frozen, their guns cold, their formations broken. Around them, space felt heavier, darker, as if the human warship had pulled the shadows closer. On the Bloodfang's bridge, the Admiral stood with his claws gripping the railing. He had fought in more battles than he could count, but never had he felt so powerless. It wasn't just the Oblivion's weapons. It was the way the humans used them, with patience, with control, with purpose. Juno Ashford watched them from the Oblivion's command deck. Her eyes moved from ship to ship, noting the cracks in their discipline. Half of the fleet had turned off their targeting systems entirely. Some ships were drifting slightly out of position, too afraid to move back into place. Cole leaned in. Captain, readings confirm their weapons are cold. Juno didn't smile. That doesn't mean they've surrendered, she said. It just means they're waiting to see if they'll live. Her voice carried through the bridge, calm but sharp. Bring the lance arrays online, full power. Along the Oblivion's hull, heavy armor plates slid back in smooth, deliberate motion. Hundreds of weapon emitters emerged, glowing faintly. The light wasn't bright. It was a deep, pulsing red, like a heartbeat in the dark. On every Dominion ship, alarms screamed as the readings spiked. The targeting indicators didn't lock on one ship. They locked on all of them. Panic erupted. On the Varkun, Captain Relvar slammed his claws against the comm console. They're aiming at the entire fleet, he shouted. His sensor officer stared at the readings in disbelief. No, not aiming. They've already calculated the shots. Relvar froze. That meant if the humans fired now, there would be no reaction time. The Dominion would simply cease to exist. Back on the Oblivion, Juno stepped forward until she stood just behind the helm station. Open a channel to their flagship, she ordered. Seconds later, the face of the Dominion Admiral appeared on the display. His eyes were wide, his mandibles tense. You've made your point, H. He said slowly. Tell me your terms. Juno didn't blink. You will withdraw from every human colony, every human world, every border where your ships have crossed in the last decade, she said. You will release all prisoners, human or otherwise, within 48 hours. Her voice was steady, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. And you will never scan another human warship again. The Admiral's jaw clenched. And if we refuse, he asked, though his tone carried no real challenge. Juno's answer was only 4 words, the same words she had planned to deliver since the moment the scan hit their hull. You scanned the wrong ship. Cole's finger hovered over the firing command. The Dominion fleet's comms were silent. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then a low tone sounded on the bridge. Incoming transmission. Surrender code. Authenticated. Fleet-wide. On the Bloodfang, the Admiral turned away from the display. His crew sat in stunned silence. Some looked relieved, others ashamed. He gave the order in a flat voice. All ships. Stand down. We live today because they allow it. The Oblivion's weapons powered down in unison. The glow along its hull faded until the warship was once again a shape of pure shadow. Juno watched as the Dominion ships slowly began to turn, retreating without another word. Some of them jumped to warp immediately, eager to put as much distance between themselves and the human vessel as possible. Course, Captain? Cole asked quietly. Juno gave a single nod toward deep space. Home, she said, and under her breath she added, but keep the guns warm. In the void behind them, the Dominion fleet disappeared into hyperspace, but the fear they carried would remain, fear of a ship they had once thought was prey, fear of the humans who commanded it without hesitation, fear of the moment they scanned it and sealed their own fate. And as the Oblivion vanished into the dark, one truth settled over the galaxy like a shadow. Some doors should never be opened, some enemies should never be provoked, and some scans should never be sent. Aftermath of the scan, the HSS Oblivion returned to human space without ceremony. There were no parades, no victory broadcasts. The mission was classified before its engines even cooled. Officially, nothing had happened. The Dominion hadn't attacked. The humans hadn't responded. The galaxy turned as it always had. But unofficially, The story was already spreading. It began with whispers on deep space comm channels. A merchant convoy claimed to have seen a black shape slide silently past them at the edge of a dead system. Refugee ships from Dominion space spoke of entire fleets turning back without explanation, and then came the rumors. Wild, exaggerated, unstoppable. Some said the Oblivion could erase a planet in a single shot. Others swore it carried weapons that could tear the heart out of a star. A few even claimed it wasn't a ship at all but a living thing, a predator in the shape of a warship, hunting anything foolish enough to look at it. In the Dominion itself, the surrender order became the most heavily guarded secret in their history. Commanders who had been present at the encounter were reassigned to remote posts. Ships were ordered to erase all scan records, and a new regulation was written in silence. No Dominion vessel will scan a human warship without High Command's approval. But fear doesn't obey orders. Captains still told the story in quiet voices, how the scan came back with a warning in their own language, how the black ship chose its kills with patience, how survival felt less like mercy and more like a judgment. Back on Earth, the Oblivion was taken to a classified dry dock buried in the shadow of a nameless moon. Its hull was cleaned, its weapons cooled, but nothing about it felt dormant, even powered down. It seemed to drink in the light around it as if it was only resting. Captain Juno Ashford did in her mission logs to High Command. When the final meeting ended, a senior admiral pulled her aside. "You understand we can't make this public," he said. Juno only nodded. "I know, but the Dominion will tell the story for us." She was right. Within weeks, the tale had reached far beyond the Dominion's borders. In neutral space stations, bounty hunters argued over whether the humans would ever use the ship again. In war councils of rival empires, leaders whispered about what it meant for balance of power, and in the quiet corners of the galaxy, smugglers raised their glasses to a new toast, to the shadow that sees you before you see it. But for every rumor, one truth remained hidden. No one outside the human fleet knew exactly what the Oblivion was capable of. The Dominion's descriptions were inconsistent, their sensor records incomplete. Some details didn't match at all. The number of weapon ports, the shape of the hull, even the sound of its engines. It was as if the ship had rewritten itself in their memories, leaving only the fear behind. 1 year later, on a forgotten listening post along the Dominion border, a sensor operator picked up a faint ping. It was a scan return. A massive, slow-moving object. The readings were strange, unreadable. The operator froze, staring at the display. Then, hidden deep inside the data packet, he saw a short message in flawless Karath. "You should not have looked." He never reported it. Instead, he shut down the scanners, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark, hoping the shadow would pass him by. And so the legend grew, not from battles won or fleets destroyed, but from the silence that followed, because everyone in the galaxy now knew the same thing. Some enemies don't fight for territory, they fight to remind you there are lines you cannot cross. And humanity had drawn one of those lines in the void, in the deep, and this black of space, far from any star, the Oblivion drifted, its hull silent, its weapons sleeping, but in its heart, the singularity reactor pulsed slow and steady. Not like a machine, but like something alive, waiting. Because somewhere, someday, another captain would make the same mistake and send a scan into the dark, and the Oblivion would open its eyes.